today to talk to you about the audiobook The Last Kingdom, written by Bernard Cornwell, narrated by Jonathan Keeble. This is the first book in Bernard Cornwell's wonderful series about Uhtred of Bebbanburg. Before I get into the book, though, if you're an audiobook lover, like I am, even if you just love books, subscribe, turn on notifications, join me in my audiobook journey. Now, as I said, this is a wonderful book series. This was my first time listening to this, the first book in the series. However, I have already listened to most of the books in this series, and I don't know that this is the first book written in the series, but this is the book first in Uhtred of Bebbanburg's life. It introduces him as a young man being raised by a Christian Saxon family. His father is the ruler of Bebbanburg, and he's descendant from kings, but he's no longer a king. He now rules at the king's pleasure. And Uhtred has an older brother. In fact, Uhtred's name is not Uhtred. He has an older brother. The Danes, or the Vikings, are seen on the river. And so his father sends his older brother, whose name is Uhtred, to go spy. Well, the Danes tease his older brother, draw him into a battle, and cut his head off, ride back to Bebbanburg, show the head, throw it on the ground right away. So Uhtred gets promoted to firstborn son, and his name gets changed to Uhtred. He gets rebaptized as Uhtred. And his father has this big battle. The king has called all of his bannermen together. He's going to have this major battle with the Danes. And so his father's riding off to war. Well, even though Uhtred is only, 7, 8 years old, something like that, his father brings him along, because he's got to learn about war at some point. And they give him a little sword. Now it's real enough in the sense that it could cut and it could kill, but it's a toy in the sense of its size and everything else. It's basically like a big knife. And Uhtred goes along, and he's supposed to just watch the battle and, stay out of it. Well, the battle starts out well for the Saxons, and then turns. And Uhtred sees that his father's in trouble. And so Uhtred goes charging in, and as his father's slain, Uhtred attacks the man who slew his father with his little toy sword, which just ends up bending and warping as he whacks the guy with it. The Dane that he's attacking finds this hilarious, this little kid with this little toy sword attacking him. So he doesn't allow him to be slain. He captures him, makes him a slave. But it's this weird relationship, because he's a slave, but he's extremely well treated. It's more like he's a member of the family who has chores and responsibilities. Because he's got his chores, he's got his responsibilities, but he also plays with the kids. And eventually, he even ends up in a fight. And actually, throughout the book, he's constantly fighting with the kids who are not slaves. But he doesn't get punished for it. It's weird, because he's a slave, but he's also got a lot of freedom. And he's out in the woods, and he's playing with, I think his father's name was Ragnar. He's playing with Ragnar's kids. And someone who is a true bully, even though he's a free boy, attacks, brings a real sword in, attacks, rips the top of Ragnar's daughter's, shirt off. She's 10, 11 years old, so there's nothing there, but, he still dishonors her. And Uhtred attacks and defends her. Well, he comes back to camp, and he's been in a fight, and that's obvious. And they ask him what happened, and he tries to downplay it. The little girl mentions what happened. Her father, in anger, rushes out, punishes the boy who attacked her by taking out his eye. and ends up eventually adopting Uhtred into the family, and Uhtred becomes part of Ragnar's family. Well, that boy who lost his eye and his father go to Bebbanburg and convince Uhtred's uncle, who wants Uhtred dead, because then once Uhtred's dead, he will become the ruler of Bebbanburg. As long as Uhtred is alive, Uhtred's the rightful ruler, and not him. Convinces him to attack Ragnar in the middle of the night, to light the fire and wipe out everybody. Well, Uhtred happens to be away with his girlfriend. And there is sex in this book, but it's not anything that could be remotely called graphic. It's more like, someone saying, yep, and he slept with her, kind of a thing. Yep, Uhtred slept with her. That's as graphic as it gets. There's rape in the book, but it's something that's mentioned in passing, not something that's descriptive in any way at all. Same with the sex. The sex is just mentioned in passing. That's a good way to describe it, Danny. Good job. Well, Uhtred tries to get back in time to warn his father. He can't. He gets angry. He handles the situation wrong, and his uncle realizes he's alive. So his uncle puts a plan in place to blame him for his father's death, for his Danish father's death. And so now all the Danes think that Uhtred, who was this slave that was adopted in the family, hates Danes and killed his Danish father. And he has no choice but to flee back to the Saxons and to throw himself on the mercy of Arthur, who is the king of the Saxons. Now, in his heart, Uhtred wants to be Danish. He worships Thor. He wants to be he wants to be a warrior. He wants to live the Viking life. However, he has to pretend to be a Christian for Arthur. Now, I know in later books, he stops pretending, and it's very clear to Arthur and to everyone else that he is a Dane at heart, and that he worships Thor, and he despises Christians. If you're Christian like I am, don't allow yourself to become offended by Uhtred's attitude towards Christians. This is a work of historical fiction, and the Vikings did despise the Christians. The Vikings thought the Christians were weak because they worshipped a god that allowed mere humans to nail him to a cross and kill him. They never truly understood that. And so Uhtred despises Christians, and you get his internal thoughts, and you get he has internal battles, because on the one hand he needs the Saxons, they need him. It's a relationship of necessity. On the other hand, there's nothing he wants more than to be a Dane. However, he swears fealty to Arthur, and he's not the kind of man who can honorably back out of that. Once he's sworn fealty, he's given his fealty, and Arthur keeps tricking him into he'll give it for a year, and then when the year's up, he ends up giving it more. And he ends up, through the entire series, serving Arthur, being Arthur's warlord, at the same time hating Arthur, hating Christians, and wanting nothing more than to be a Dane. It's a thrilling book with wonderfully done battle scenes, shield walls, the battle scenes that get your blood pumping and get you really going. The narrator does an amazing job. Love the narration of this book. And far as I know, he keeps the same narrator for all of the books, but I haven't heard a bad one. It's been listened to over years, so if there was a swap, it was on a different book. But love the narration, love the book, love the entire series. Good job, Bernard Cornwell. If you like my video, hit the like button. If you like my channel, subscribe. Turn on notifications. But most importantly, no matter what else you do today, make sure that today you listen to at least one really good audiobook. And I highly recommend The Last Kingdom by Bernard Cornwell. Thank you.